How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome back to Fireside Yankees with your boys, Alex and Ryan. Today we're discussing Alex Bregman. Now, his market is kind of materializing slowly this offseason. There's not many teams that are willing to spend big money on a free agent infielder right now, and the Yankees are one of the few teams that are looking for support there, but they can't really afford Bregman. So there are some creative ways, and I wrote about this about 2 days ago, on how the Yankees might be able to make it work on a shorter-term deal. Maybe if you wanted to go for like a 4-year contract, I could see that being viable. Maybe a 5-year deal with an out after like the third season, I could even see being viable. I'll get your take on that, Ryan, in terms of just length of the contract, what that could be structured like, and how can the Yankees free up enough money to make a deal happen now? How can they allow themselves to potentially add that championship caliber piece, right? Like Bregman is by far one of the most experienced playoff hitters on the market right now. He's by far one of the best third basemen on the market. He is the best third baseman on the market, and we know that he is more than capable of being a tremendous offensive threat. He solves a lot of problems for the Yankees. Now, the problem is he wants like $25+ million a year. So we have some ideas on how to bring that money down, how we can make this work. But Ryan, before we dive into it, how you do today, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. It is a nice Saturday. We're getting closer and closer to spring training, and I say this every time we record. Another episode, another day closer to spring training, guys. Baseball, it feels like it's right around the corner. We're entering the end of the offseason, final like month or so until pitchers and catchers report. And Alex, that is beautiful, not just for a fan, a fan who wants baseball to be back, but also for the Yankees, because the New York Yankees are in a situation now where they are going to potentially be able to see some infield free agents fall into their laps. And I am under the opinion that the New York Yankees have been waiting for this for the entire winter. That they've been waiting, knowing that the infield market could collapse and not really shake out the way that some of these players hoped it would. And kind of at the forefront of this, and maybe the most surprising player of the last few years to sign a short-term deal outside of Carlos Correa, although we did find out it was injury-related, Bregman might be the most surprising player if he ends up signing a short-term deal to sign a short-term deal. I thought it was a foregone conclusion it would get 6 to 7 years. Look, Matt Chapman and Blake Snell had their own warts. Chapman had a really bad second half with the Blue Jays. He had an injury that same season. There were a lot of teams who were just skittish about paying a player like him over 6 years. Blake Snell, he's a pitcher. There's always going to be some form of injury concern there. And you look at Bregman, as you mentioned, he is a proven player. This is a guy who could go into the Hall of Fame. I mean, he's got 39.7 wins above replacement through his age 30 season. That's nearly 40 WAR through your first, not decade, but through your 20s. He ends up putting up a pretty strong finish to his career. He could go into the Hall of Fame. That's no joke. And I thought he was going to get a 6-year, like $180 million deal. He'd sign with the Astros, or he'd sign with the Tigers, or maybe the Red Sox. And as you mentioned, it just doesn't seem like that's going to happen for him right now. Now, things could change. A team could jump in and say, screw it, here's a 6-year, $180 million deal. Come join our organization. And I'm sure Bregman at this point in time in the winter would take it. But if that doesn't happen, if those 6-year deals don't coming down for him, and he doesn't like the long-term offers he's getting, perhaps he turns to the short-term market. Now, I know his camp has said he's not interested in a short-term deal. He has zero interest. But I'd like to also point to the fact that Jack Curry once said about a year ago, Blake Snell has no interest in signing a short-term deal. That he was not going to sign a short-term deal. There was no belief in the industry that he would do that. Same was true for Chapman. Both these guys got qualifying offers. Everyone was saying they would have just taken said qualifying offer. They ended up signing 3-year deals with those opt-outs, basically making it a 1-year deal. Bellinger was under the same breath, and if you remember back then, the belief was that Bellinger wasn't going to sign a 3-year deal, that he was also going to go get, 5 or 6 years in the open market. Bregman is as you mentioned, proven, and I mean proven player in the regular and postseason. He is a pillar of consistency offensively and defensively. You're going to get 4 to 5 wins above replacement annually from Alex Bregman. I know this past year he saw a little bit of a dip in his offensive production, but he also started spraying the ball around the field a little bit more, which I think makes him a little more desirable for a team like the Yankees, who, their ballpark doesn't really play towards his strengths. We understand that Alex Bregman's power is not going to play as well here as it would in Houston, but he would have had 25 home runs if he played all of his games at Yankee Stadium compared to 26. That's not a drop-off that I think you or I would be concerned about. And then I want to reference a tool made by a good friend of mine, Jacob, at JacobE_STL. I've referenced the spray chart comparison chart app multiple times in my articles and on this channel. And his weighted on base average on contact, which is basically saying how well would he perform in terms of how well would his batted balls perform at a ballpark, because obviously walks and strikeouts are independent of a ballpark in most cases. He would have had a 378 WOBA on batted balls in Houston this year and a 373 on batted balls if he played all of his games at Yankee Stadium this year. So, Alex, again, I raised the question, is there a significant difference between Yankee Stadium and Minute Maid Park for what Alex Bregman would produce in 2025? My answer is probably no. Again, he won't hit 30 home runs here. He won't have an MVP year here, but could he be like a 120 WRC plus hitter with a 340, 350 OBP? He could, and he could do it while providing great defense at third base. And Alex, that kills two birds with one stone. Leadoff hitter, third base, fill up your lineup, and honestly, and I'll say this confidently, tell everyone else in baseball we are better than we were last year. The American League sucks. It's terrible. I don't care if the Blue Jays sign Alonso. I don't care if they sign Santander. They stink. They suck. The Red Sox haven't really spent a lot of money. The Orioles, God knows what they're doing. The Rangers, they look a little more formidable because they built up their bullpen, but they're still a big question mark. The Astros just lost Kyle Tucker. Speaking of another team that lost a player, Corbin Burns left the Orioles. So, yes, the Yankees lost Juan Soto, and that sucks. And I'm never going to sit here and say that losing Juan Soto is a good thing, or that the Yankees are they would be better without Juan Soto in 2025. But I'm just saying the rest of the American League has mostly lost talent or not gained talent. If the Yankees can import Alex Bregman, they're a better team than last year's team. Not a better team, in my opinion, than the team they could have been with Juan Soto this year, but certainly better than last year's team. Last year's team was a flawed team. It was the team with their worst projected win total according to Fangraphs and Pacoda on Baseball Prospectus since 2017. That was a flawed roster, Alex, in a bad American League. This year, you're going to have a still flawed roster, but if you had Bregman, man, do you really even care if Volpe takes that big of a step offensively? What if Wells just repeats last year? What if, you could just take those outcomes and you'd say, fine, we'll still hit because we've got Alex Bregman and Aaron Judge and Bellinger in a ballpark that plays for him and a full season of Jazz Chisholm. And you think of that infield defense, Alex, it would be sick, man. Is there a ground ball that's getting past the infield defense of Bregman, Volpe, Jazz, and Goldschmidt? You'd have to really try and hit it out you'd have to really get lucky to get that ball out of the infield, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, so let's talk about how this could work financially. We know teams aren't really looking for high-priced free agents like a Bregman right now. Somebody will bite, somebody will get him. But like you said, Blake Snell last year signing that short-term deal with an opt-out after the first season. I mean, Pete Alonso was about to do something like that before, the Mets were like, see ya, we don't want to deal with all this nonsense. They didn't want all the opt-outs. They didn't want the insecurity. They wanted to have leverage. So, they decided to say, well, you're just not going to get it. And I think Bregman's problem right now is, like you said, he's asking for a lot of money and a lot of years, and he showed some signs of decline, and his first half last year was really bad, and then he picked it up in the second half. But, I do think that he is a great fit for the Yankees. He definitely, kills multiple birds with one stone, but I do think that financially, how could it work? So right now the Yankees are at $303.2 million in luxury tax salary. They don't want to be over the $301 million mark. Let's assume they don't want to be over that mark. What could they possibly do to clear enough money, or at least structure this contract so it could make sense on a shorter term, maybe a 3 or 4 year deal? Well, you have to trade Marcus Stroman first and foremost, right? You package him with a prospect that's going to allow you to keep most of the money, right? Let's say the Yankees kick in like $3 million and they end up paying, or $3.5 million. They end up getting back $15 million, so they have a little bit of wiggle room. You could structure his contract similar to Max Fried's contract, where Max Fried's getting $14 million, and then it escalates to like 31.5, maybe it's 17. So the first 2 years are slightly, or not even slightly, significantly lower base salary, and then it kind of skyrockets up in the last 5 years of the contract, 6 years of the contract. So the Yankees, theoretically, you could try to structure the deal so that way maybe he gets a signing bonus, maybe you keep his money down for the first 2 years, and then the amount increases over the last 2 years of the deal. So higher AAV when he's like 32 to 34 instead of 30 to 32. What was he, 30 years old right now? Yeah. So like from his age 30 to 32 season, it's like 15 mil a year. And then from his age 32 to 34 season, it's like, it probably have to be like 30 mil a year, right? It probably have to be in that range to make it make sense. But a shorter term deal also kind of puts you in a difficult position because now you have to, he's not going to want to do that. Like structuring a contract like that on a short term deal, it doesn't make sense for the player, right? So he probably wouldn't want to go in that direction. But Ryan, would you think it'd be more likely if Bregman was more willing to take like a shorter term high AAV deal, or maybe a longer term lower AAV deal, or even a deal that might be like a 1 year high AAV, but the Yankees can get away from it? I just don't think they want to go over that fourth luxury tax threshold. I think that's a major kind of roadblock for them.
Yeah, well, I'm going to have a hard time seeing them getting under that threshold because they're currently over it right now by about $1 million. And then when Mark Leiter Jr.'s case is settled, regardless of who wins the case, whether the Yankees or the Leiter win the case, it doesn't matter. They'll go up by another $3 million. So if you're the Yankees, the only way you're going to be able to duck under it is if you trade Mark Leiter Jr., and then trade another player making money. So not saying that it's impossible for them to get underneath it, not saying that they may not be intending to get underneath it, but if they trade Stroman and they trade Leiter Jr., I have a hard time seeing how they're going to, even if they move Stroman and Mark Leiter Jr., they could duck under that fourth threshold. And maybe that doesn't open up room for Bregman. That's fine. I'm not saying, look, number one, Bregman has yet to, sign a contract. Number two, most importantly, Bregman is still not willing to sign a short-term contract as of right now. So, if he never opens up to the short-term thing, I'm never going to be like, oh, the Yankees, look at how stupid they are. What are we doing? This isn't that. Like, if he signs a 5-6 year deal somewhere, I'll say, didn't fall into the short-term market, is what it is. Roll into your next kind of page of options. The reason that he's so intriguing is that he's still out there. But also for the Yankees, and this is more so a message towards ownership in the front office. Look, you left when Juan Soto left. The message was that you would go out and you would go improve this team and you would make this team meaningfully better. And so far, to this point in time, they've done that. They've gotten Max Fried. Happy birthday, Max Fried. It's his birthday today. Happy birthday, man. You've acquired Cody Bellinger to play left field. I expect him to be an above-average player in left field and produce, and I expect this ballpark to play him well. Look, Paul Goldschmidt isn't a sexy addition. He wasn't at the top of my board, but he is objectively better than whatever they had at first base last year. And at the very least, you can open up a way for Ben Rice to play, and I think Ben Rice does have some upside, so I do believe in the Yankees to have production at first base this year. You look at the bullpen, Devin Williams, Fernando Cruz. I mean, that is a sick duo of relievers to add to a bullpen that should be pretty good next year, even if they didn't add those two guys or only added one of those two guys. The Yankees have lived up to this point in the offseason, their promise to improve the team. But if you don't add an impact infielder, you've broken that part of the deal. It's, the Yankees have, again, I am not sitting here and saying the Yankees have done a horrible job of adding. They've had a terrible offseason. They're a bad team, and everyone should be panicking and worrying that this team's going to be dead in the waters in June. What I am saying, though, is that you've got to finish the job, and that if you're going to live up to this whole mecca of baseball, we're the New York Yankees, we're going to, we are a premium franchise, we're an ideal landing spot for teams. Juan Soto left probably partially, obviously because of the money, right? But I imagine he was sold a bill of goods by the Mets that they're going to spend more than the Yankees will. They'll bring in more premium free agents. And Juan Soto said, I believe you, and I believe your money, and I'm going to go here. And I don't think the Yankees are going to build around me the same way, because he said that publicly. He thinks the Mets are, it's a better place to win. Even if he's lying and it's all about money, that's the words out of his mouth. And if you don't land an impact infielder, he will have been right. He will have been right to say that you weren't going to build properly around him. He will have been right to have left. Everything that he would have done would have been justified. It would have been, yep, he was so right. Imagine if he stayed with the Yankees, his career would have been in shambles. He would have been playing on mediocre ball clubs, this, and that. You can flip that narrative entirely. Now, I'm not saying it has to be Alex Bregman, although he would certainly definitively flip that narrative. But if you sign an Alex Bregman, if you signed even a Hassan Kim, if you swing a trade for an impact infielder and then sign an impact reliever to fill out your bullpen, you need a left-hand reliever, whether that's Tim Hill, Andrew Chafin, who knows, maybe Tanner Scott, although he's asking for a lot. You signal to the rest of baseball that you are spenders, that you are the mecca of baseball, that you are in a bad American League, and that you're going to dominate and take advantage of that situation. I'm not entirely sure the Yankees will ever be in an AL situation where the rest of the teams in the league are as underwhelming as they are right now. There are no peak Houston Astros. There are no, young team that just won 100 games a year prior. The Baltimore Orioles have upside. The Boston Red Sox have upside. The Tigers have upside. The Guardians have upside. The Royals have upside. But they're not better than you. That's the whole point. They're not better than you. And organizationally speaking, in terms of process, player development, how many of these organizations are better than you? What pitcher can the Orioles say, yep, this guy every single year is gonna be an ace? They don't have that kind of guy. The teams that can kind of outmuscle you on the player development side are maybe the Orioles, not maybe, the Orioles and the Rays are probably the two teams that I would say can outmuscle you on the player development department. They don't spend the money. The Red Sox are they're better than you at hitting development, not as good as pitching development. So let's call it dead even, that they're dead even at player development. Well, the Yankees spend more money than the Red Sox, so that's an advantage. The Yankees kind of outmuscle everybody in the American League, and that may be by default, but they still do. That should give them a clear path to win the American League this year and maybe even next year. But the only way to fully take advantage of the opportunity is to add an impact infielder. Alex Bregman is that. Even a Hassan Kim is that. There has to be a way to import an impact infielder. So when I hear the fourth threshold, and when I hear it as like a de facto salary cap for the Yankees, I sit back and I think to myself, well, how serious is this team about contending then? Because you're the New York freaking Yankees, and you can make a boatload of money winning a lot of games. Again, I'm not accusing them of having a bad winner, or I'm not accusing them of being cheap or anything like that. I'm saying that if they want to deliver on their promise and firmly, and no fan could sit there and say that they didn't try and that they didn't push hard enough in the winter, landing an impact infielder does that, and Alex Bregman most certainly does that, and most certainly makes this team, like, as good as anyone, in my opinion. They could go toe-to-toe with anybody in the league, even the Dodgers. Anybody.
Yeah, and that's the kind of piece the Yankees need at this point in time to push them over the edge, right? The American League is extremely open for the taking, and the Yankees can take it with ease with one more high-profile piece. And to beat the Dodgers now, after getting Roki Sasaki yesterday, I mean, Ryan, we're looking at I don't think I've ever seen baseball this lopsided, in a long time. To see a team like this, the Dodgers, look, and you say it best on Twitter, there's a lot of variance to baseball. Anything could happen. You could have a bad series, and it could be in the World Series. But the Dodgers are probably going to coast to the World Series because they have an embarrassment of riches. They are full, stacked to the brim with talent. The Yankees need that piece. Or look, variance, it happens. But the Dodgers are approaching a level of competency, a level of excellence that regular variance does not necessarily apply to that level of talent and that much firepower. So, I think that if the Yankees really want to win a World Series, they got to be extremely careful with what they do here. They can't go into this season with DJ LeMahieu as an actual viable solution. They need another big bat. They need another person, another player in this infield that's going to fill a major void and hit a lot of check a lot of boxes for them. So, I'll let you answer that, man. Like, beating the Dodgers, yeah, they're not in the AL, but if we go to the World Series, there's a pretty damn good chance we're going to have to take them down, and we're going to need that guy.
Yeah, and, if you play them in the World Series, and I would say this as currently constructed, the Yankees, if they played a 7-game series against the Dodgers, they wouldn't be favorites. They would have a very good chance of losing that series, but it's baseball. And baseball is the most high variance sport when it comes to the postseason. So in a 7-game series, yeah, the Yankees could beat anybody. And a 7-game series, I'd argue, how many teams couldn't beat the Dodgers in a 7-game series because it's baseball? And the Dodgers are probably a historically great roster in the context of, like, the last 20 years. Like, in the last 20 years, it's probably one of the best rosters I've ever seen, if not the best roster I've ever seen. And I'd say the Orioles could beat them in a 7-game series, the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Guardians, the Royals, the Tigers, the Astros, the Rangers, the Mets, the Braves, the Phillies, the Diamondbacks, the Brewers. Like that's about half the league, because baseball's baseball's a high variance sport. Baseball's a sport where in 7 games, anything can happen. In 5 games, anything can happen. So, as you mentioned, with margins of error and baseball being a high variance sport, if you close those margins, if you make it so that the Dodgers have a 55% chance to win the World Series if they played you, there's a 45% chance you beat them. You get a 45% chance to win the World Series. That's pretty freaking good. And there's a good chance you actually can pull it off, because it's not out of the realm of possibility. And as you mentioned in regards to the American League, the Yankees are favorites to win the American League, but it's not out of the realm of reason for them to not win their division, not be the top wild card team, and most certainly not win the pennant, right? All 3 of those things are still, like, it doesn't take the Yankees having a million injuries for that to happen. It doesn't take the Red Sox staying fully healthy, 100% healthy, for them to beat out the Yankees in the division. What if Max Fried just goes down for 2 months? What if Garrett Cole, same thing happened as last year? What if, God forbid, Aaron Judge gets hit in the hand, right? I mean, in the span of 1 pitch, 1 play, 1 second, 1 moment, the odds in the division would shift so dramatically that the Red Sox could probably win the division. If the Red Sox sign Bregman, their odds are probably going to be 50-50 with the Yankees winning the division. And I talk about this, again, to tie it back to Bregman. You can really, like, I feel like, take the wind out of Boston's sails as they're trying to become an up-and-coming team by signing Bregman. Because that's a guy that Alex Cora really wants. That's a guy that Boston really wants. I couldn't imagine the heartbreak. I couldn't imagine the pain. I couldn't imagine the blow that would be to the clubhouse, to Alex Cora, to get that call from Alex Bregman, a player he is close with, to say, I'm signing with the New York Yankees. I can't imagine with that call for John Henry, Craig Breslow, for that fan base seeing that tweet on the timeline, what that could possibly feel like. I don't think I could imagine that in the context outside of losing Juan Soto. Now, losing Juan Soto is a little bit different because he was our player for that year. But I'm just saying, in terms of the pain, in terms of this was our guy, like, the Yankees weren't even in on this guy for a while. And then just swoop him up and take him up after the Yankees spent $64 million in free agency to solidify themselves as the best team in the American League East, to make it so that the Red Sox are really not on the Yankees playing field. Like, no one's on the Yankees playing field in the AL. It doesn't feel like the Yankees are on their own tier in the AL. It feels like they're just a little bit better than everybody else. I want to feel like we're not in the same play. Please do not talk about us in the same breath as the Tigers. Like, don't do that. That's embarrassing. Like, that kind of thing. I want it to feel like that, because that's what it felt like last year. It felt like towards the end of the season, once the Orioles and Nationals got knocked out, like, please do not group us with the Royals. Please do not group us with the Guardians and the Tigers. What this low-class AL Central nonsense? These mid-market teams were spending $10 million a year. Miss me with that. We're the New York Yankees. We're going to kill these teams in the postseason. That's how I want to feel about the American League going into opening day. When opening day starts, I want to sit back and say, on the first episode we record in season, dude, we're not on the same level as these guys. We should beat the crap out of the American League this year. Let's go back to the World Series. Let's play our baseball. Let's control what we can control, and let's go win the World Series. That's what I want to be able to say. Right now, I'd say, just got to stay healthy, hope things go well. I don't want to say that. I don't want to say hope things, grosses me out. AL sucks this year. Grosses me out to have to think that you need a good outcome to go to the World Series. No, it should be the expected outcome. And Bregman brings you that. And a lot of infielders might bring you that in combination with the right kind of relief pitcher. There are ways you can get better. There are ways to improve this team. And with the way that the Padres seem to be fire selling, guys are available. Guys are available, man. Guys are available. Players are out there. Doesn't have to be Bregman. Could be a lot of other players. Go make yourselves meaningfully better. I'm just going to keep that. That's going to be my message from here until, I don't know when opening day is, actually. That's kind of embarrassing. Until opening day, go make yourselves meaningfully better. You're the New York Yankees. You should be always looking to make yourself meaningfully better. Run a payroll in the $320 million range. Go make yourself so much freaking better.
I mean, that's just what they have to do. There's no really discussion to be made here. They're one piece away from having the complete picture, and I think they're going to make it. They're just waiting for the deals to get a little bit more affordable, and I think Bregman, they're making the right decision, though, because Bregman's price tag is coming down. Like, his demands are becoming weaker. Boris didn't do him any favors in that instance in terms of, And Cashman said he's had a conversation or two with Boris about Bregman a couple weeks ago. So, I do think that right now, if you're the Yankees, just wait. Be patient. Something's going to shake free. Something's going to happen. Something's going to become available. But I think Bregman obviously would be, kind of a perfect fit for this infield. Now, we'll see if that's even possible, because I know that obviously he got hit with a qualifying offer, so they'd have to give up draft capital for him. Obviously, that's not preferable, but if you're going to have to trade prospects anyway to get somebody else, it doesn't really matter, does it? You know what I mean?
It's not like we just want Bregman on a 6-year, 7-year deal because you're the Yankees, blah, blah, blah. The Dodgers got Roki Sasaki, you got to spend. Like, no, it's if the value is there, right? If the value is there, yes, you got to go after him. If it's 5-6 years, yeah, I'm cool off not signing him. And also, this logic can apply to other free agents on the market. Ha-Seong Kim, who's his market? Have you heard a peep about anyone wanting Ha-Seong Kim? Like, I haven't heard a peep, dude.
Nope.
Not a single tweet going, this team's interested. No one's interested. It seems like no one's interested. Go get him. No QO. He might sign the Glaber deal, 1 year, $15 million. If you get him on a 1 year, $50 million deal, Alex, that's beautiful value. No QO, no IFA money lost, good defensive player. Yeah, he's going to miss the first month of the year, but isn't that kind of what the Yankees want anyways? They kind of want to figure out what they have internally. Cool, figure out... throwing up my mouth saying this, but if they want to figure out what they want to have in DJ LeMahieu, go sign Ha-Seong Kim. You could figure it out. You could figure out what Cabrera is. Figure out whatever Peraza is. Cool. Let these guys get their little month in the sun and then start cutting dudes when Ha-Seong Kim comes back. Because if let's say you get it's a month gone, he comes back on May 1st, and Cabrera's playing decently well. Like, he's kept his spot on the roster. Peraza's good against lefties. He's doing a job, and LeMahieu's abhorrent. There's one guy to cut on the roster, right? If Peraza's playing like crap and DJ's not good but competent, and Peraza's just so bad that, like, he stands out as the stinky one, you cut him. If Cabrera is awful, atrocious, you option him. It's a beautiful way to kind of clear up your roster, in my opinion. I could be wrong. I could be very wrong. This could play out very poorly for the New York Yankees, I guess, but I look at the market and I say there are two guys out there that I really want that are, the market's dead for them. The market's dead for them. I see no excuse to not end up with an infielder. And if those guys sign elsewhere, those teams have infielders they may have to trade. So I just don't see a world in which the Yankees can justify getting nobody of note. Like, if I end up with Brendan Rodgers as my starting second baseman, man, I'm going to flip out. I really am. Because there are too many infielders. Too many of them out there. Would like Brendan Rodgers as a bench piece. I've said that multiple times. I would love him as a bench piece. Not as a starter. But that's besides the point. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, of course. And guys, always happy to hear your thoughts down below in the YouTube comments section. As always, make sure to like and subscribe. Drop a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. Appreciate you guys. And we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.
Perfect.